What kind of leaders do we need for the remainder of the 21st century? From 2022 to the year 2100. What kind of leaders do we need? Is it a unique type of leadership that we need? A different kind of leadership? I think it's a different kind of leadership that we're going to be needing over the next few decades. I think we're going to have leaders that are able to be experts at foreign policy, understand all the ins and outs of foreign policy over a long period of time, not just the time that they've spent in the public office, but over the whole, history pretty much of the nation. They understand the economic, global economic situation and the foreign policy situation in the world, and understand it very deeply, and be a person that really is a global person, but not one that will submit to internationalism to the point of surrendering our full sovereignty of our own nation, not surrendering any of our own sovereignty as a nation. So we need to, and then as well, of course, it needs to be a special type of person to understand all the new intricacies of all the complex problems that are beginning to take place in their own country, that have been building for a long time and have slipped up on a lot of our leaders. Problems, all over the place in our nation that are just boiling over and becoming into a new place of prominence that we haven't seen before in the past centuries, in the past decades. We were pretty well able to solve most of our problems for the first 250 years of this country by more simple solutions and by easier solutions. And at least they were able to kick the can down the road with a simple solution of some kind. But in the future and over the next few decades, that's not going to be near as easy to do. We're going to have to start solving a lot of these problems. And so what's going to happen is the leader that we need, the kind of leaders we need, are going to have to be willing and able to solve all these problems that have been kicked down the road for so long by previous leaders that seemingly didn't have the willingness or the capacity to do so. So now we're stuck with them, and they're going to come to a point where they're going to have to be solved. And we're going to need special leaders in order to be able to do that. Be able to solve problems that have built up for a long time. No simple solution. Complex problems. Deep problems. Deep problems are going to require deep answers. And deep answers are going to require a deep understanding and deep amount of wisdom, a great amount of wisdom and a great amount of vision. We're going to have to, we really need as a country to learn how to develop greater insight, wisdom, and understanding in our people, in our students and in our universities and all. But in lieu of that, we're going to have people that are able to do that on their own, understand how to seek wisdom, seek real understanding and insight, and really seek it fervently, and know how to turn to their inner source and gain special insight. This superficial type of leadership is not going to last. I mean, it's not going to be able to cause us to survive into the 22nd century. We're going to have proficient leaders with great vision and great abilities. We've had a few of those in the past, and the blessing is, and the great miracle is that we did have them at the time when we really had our worst crises. World War I, World War II, the various racial problems in the Cuban Missile Crisis and all that we had with John Kennedy, and a lot of the other crises that we've had where and the times when The foreign policy had to expand, such as when Richard Nixon expanded foreign policy to include China and opened the door to trade with China. In times like that, we have been lucky to have had great leaders like Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon and so forth. But a lot of the times our leaders were not really of the order that would have been able to handle real crises, and especially the complex problems that are coming up in the future. And so we're going to have to be looking toward the kind of leadership that is going to provide for that and going to be able to handle that. And we're going to have a way of judging and understanding as a nation when people like that are available and how to get them to serve and how to get them in the right positions, how to enable them to get a nomination that they need or get an appointment that they need, how to play defense for them or offense for them to be able to, stop them from being knocked out of that position that they deserve to be in, like judgeships and Supreme Court justices and all that have the wisdom that they need if they need to be on the court. I can name several judges that were very wise judges and really needed to be on the court, and they had a very hard time getting appointed, and others that had an easy appointment were not really as good as judges once they got there. So these kind of things go on. But we have to have a vision of what is going to happen for the remainder of this century. We got to be able to look forward and see all the different things that are going to come up. As I started out to say, started out talking about all the things that are going to happen on the international scene, on the foreign policy scene. What are the things that are going to develop in China? What are he's going to develop in Korea, North Korea and South Korea? What are the things that are going to develop in Iran and in the Middle East and Russia and all the other countries? And how we can bring those countries together to work toward a common peace and a common happiness and a common goals that will help the entire earth, the entire world to bring all of our people into a better place, better place of prosperity, a higher prosperity, a higher hope, and a higher ability to take care of all of their needs and be more prosperous. We can easily have a vision of hundreds of times more prosperity than we've ever seen before. We can easily have a vision the remainder of this century of being able to feed every hungry person and raise every person out of poverty, make the races equal in their enfranchisement. All these things are within the realm of possibility, and if we get leaders that have the vision that they can see what these problems are and how to bring them how to solve them in a way that will satisfy everyone. Solving them is not going to come by all this wrangling and arguing back and forth and calling each other names and deciding that certain people are supremacists of a certain type, others are exclusivists or supremacists of another type, and sending people over into camps of superiority or camps of exclusivity or exception. But rather, we're going to have to learn how to communicate on a deeper level than we have been communicating before. These kind of things such as that are going on with the supremacy and the CRT and all that kind of business, and the different theories that are being taught in the schools and all, is all a superficial way of dealing with the problem. It's very superficial. And it's a way that is not solving things in the deep way that they really need to be solved. It's only so much going around in circles and stabbing at the problem. We're going around in circles. People decide that, most of the original leaders of the country were of a certain race, and so it would have been impossible for them to have made a good decision on anything or put any kind of foundation under the country that would last or anything like that, because after all, they're of only one race. And so unless we had an equal number of every race that's in the country there at the founding, then it's impossible that we could have ever formed a solid country. Well, that's just a fallacy. And then on the other hand, you know, the white supremacists, they're, you know, looking at anybody that is not in their extremely white, extremely Caucasian shade of color. They can't possibly have the right thing on their mind. They can't possibly be made a full partner in our decisions. All of these things